Artificial intelligence is reinventing business as we speak. You can either get up to speed or get left behind. The choice is yours, and really, it's a no-brainer. Join Cognitive Path founders Geoff Livingston and Greg Verdino as they chat with AI experts about the latest ideas, trends, and technologies that are creating the future of business today. This is No Brainer.
Hey everybody, this is Geoff Livingston, and I am here today with a very special edition of the No Brainer podcast. We're going to the GovAI Summit media stage, where I had the pleasure of interviewing 4 industry experts. So specifically, we're going to talk about image and video and text generation adoption of AI from the creative perspective with Adobe. Then we're going to talk about how AI can be used in an ethical fashion. And then finally, we are going to get into how AI is improving the meeting experience within the public sector and in general, as well as state and local adoption of AI. My experts today are joining me from, again, Adobe, Abt Global, Zoom, and Avaya. So with that, please do enjoy this special episode of No Brainer Podcast. And special thanks to our partner, MoDev, who allowed me to interview these experts and to share these conversations with you. Please do punch the like button, subscribe, and share the podcast. Please be safe and have a great holiday season. Cheers.
All right, everybody. Hey, I'm Geoff Livingston with Cognitive Path, and I'm here with Jeffrey Young, the Solutions Consulting Manager at Adobe Government. How are you, sir?
Great. Thank you for having us here.
Very good. And also Steve Lewis, the Digital Media Solutions Consultant at Adobe Government. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you today?
We're doing very well. A lot of energy, a lot of excitement here.
Excellent. And are you enjoying the fine autumn look of DC and peak foliage? It's gorgeous, huh?
DC's beautiful, especially getting out to the Virginia Blue Ridge. That's where we like to be.
Oh, for sure, man. It's gorgeous. So, look, obviously Adobe is one of the leading companies in AI. You guys were out there early. You have one of the most ethical models that were deployed early with Firefly. Really impressed with the stuff that you've done. Let's talk about what you're doing here and generally what Adobe has done to establish and adhere to an ethical framework with AI.
Yeah, I think that's why we really like to go to events like this, especially that are focused around government, because that's actually where Adobe built its ethical AI framework from. They took a page out of the founding fathers when they were establishing the Constitution. So they said, hey, we're going to create a framework. We're going to create it as kind of like a republic where we say, this is who's going to be part of our committee to say, these are our rules, these are the guidelines that we have. Here are ways to both amend it as well as to defend it. We have an ethical review board, and we have representation both from HR, legal, finance, as well as the engineers, as well as the end users, to make it a part of how we are going to make decisions, and makes decisions very easy, so that way the executive branch, the engineers, have the playground that they can play in and know the guidelines that are going to guide it.
It's outstanding. And in my past, I've been a photographer, and
excellent.
I've done pretty well with it, so I obviously appreciate you guys a little more than the average Joe.
Lightroom or Photoshop?
Both, of course.
There it is. Very good.
So with that in mind, I mean, obviously intellectual property concerns, copyright concerns are massive. You guys are creating models at the forefront of creative. So how do you go about building models to protect intellectual property?
Yeah. So obviously, as a creative company, we want to protect the creators. And we've been doing this, and especially in government's done a very good job over the last 2 decades with PDFs. They've been protecting and certifying their PDFs before going out, putting a tamper-proof PKI seal, using digital signatures in order to do so. So that's what's been kind of the impetus of what started this content authenticity initiative. That part of the C2PA, which has 10 governing companies part of the board, and then we have over 3,500 part of the CAI initiative. And what this does is it puts the at the time of creation or the time of capture, the credentials on there, and then any modifications or the provenance for that, you're able to see what has changed, when it changed, and why it changed over time, all the way out to the publishing. And so you're starting to see more and more websites and social media put this watermark icon on there that's like a nutrition label that you click on it and say, I want to inspect further. Where did this originate? What changes were made? Just so it's about transparency, as well as giving credit to the originators of that, but also combating things like content forgery that is going out there. So this is going to take all of us to be a part of this to make sure that this we have the expectation to see this watermark. We also have the expectation to apply that into our workflows.
So because I know a little more than the average Joe, I'm going to just do a little quick follow-up and ask you to get into the nuts and bolts a little bit with that one. Yeah. Because obviously a lot of people know what a watermark is, but this goes further, right? My understanding is that there's digital information with each file that goes beyond what's visibly seen that people can detect when they, or I should say, content publishers and interested parties can detect when they choose to. How does that work?
Yeah, so there's probably 3 elements to this content authenticity initiative. The first one out of the gates that you probably got to see a lot more of, where you would sign the metadata. So the metadata is on there, and you'll be able to write and update and add to that metadata. The second leg in the stool to be able to, because you can strip metadata, even sign metadata, you can strip that, and there's reasons why to do it for privacy. So is also adding the forensic type of watermark into the images on those visuals as well as video. This is not just only images now, so it's also documents as well as audio.
Sure.
And so having a invisible watermark that carries this information, so that way if you're able to take a picture of something and then you can run it through this inspection tool, you're able to know. As well as having a similarity search, because you might be able to crop out that invisible watermark that's on there. So there's a lot of elements, but it's about a shift, actually. So those are all help for defensive, but we're looking at images all the time and saying, is this fake? We're looking and saying with our own eyes to see if this is fake. What we're saying now is flip that question to say, is this real? And we're going to provide you, and everyone wants to contribute to assuring that this is real. So if you are capturing, if you're editing, and if you're publishing, you want this on there to say this is real. And maybe then you start going with the assumption that unless I see this is fake, or it's going to take a further analysis.
Outstanding. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So moving forward, obviously we have a lot of govies here. I mean, it's a huge government conference. And with that in mind, can you guys tell us what you're seeing in the federal space, the state, local space? How's government looking to work with Adobe and AI in general?
I'll have Steve take that initially.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. Especially speaking from where I sit. So when I'm not working at Adobe, I'm a reservist. I'm an Air Force reservist. I've been in the Air Force for 22 years now. Came in as a photographer, photojournalist, and now public affairs officer. And and I've also spent some time in the federal space as a GS level federal employee, working for the FBI most recently, where I was running teams that were producing content for FBI.gov and the social media platforms that the FBI managed. And I will say, from that perspective, there's a lot of redundant work. I mean, and it's all important, critical work, but a lot of really resource-heavy work that has to be done on a daily basis. Whether that's transcribing video to put on social media, or developing graphics and things like that. And where we're seeing issues is where we don't have the correct resources in those seats to do that job, especially the skilled graphic designer. We don't have a large team. Some Air Force wings have one person doing social media, press releases, you name it. So that's where generative AI capabilities come into play now, and that's where these federal offices are looking now to adopt AI, especially in content creation. So we hear a lot about democratizing creativity, where now generative AI brings creativity to people who may not have that skill set at all, that now can create a graphic under pressure and to meet demand, that they no longer have to revolve around a graphic designer, and it frees that individual up to do really important work. So I think there's a lot with generative AI to bring creativity to the masses in the federal space and allow them to respond to public demand very quickly by creating those graphics very easily with the help of generative AI. So that's where it's headed right now across the federal space with DoD and DOJ, where I've been.
And I probably got 2 more just to add to it, which we've seen is really interesting, is a lot of times in this creative process that you start out with things like a script. And it's hard for people to understand. We're very visual culture, and that's what their ultimate output is. So when you're saying, here's what it could be, now you're able to use Gen AI to do the storyboarding versus the hand sketching, but also using the videos to create those subclips that you may have only been reliant on B-roll to do in the past. And then the other one that we really like seeing is, especially in government, where there's been a lot of historical archive data that's been, for good reason, a document of record stored in digital filing cabinets versus kind of how we would do it 30 years ago. But still, NARA has those requirements, which is great to say at this point in time. But it's not really activated. So now we can have the history inform using AI tools to extract the structure out of that document and be able to ask questions, synthesizing that with current data as well as all historical evidence. So it's really nice to activate some of these long-term storage PDFs.
That's pretty cool. Steve, you and I were trading emails before the show, and we were talking about the generative AI hype cycle, right? Which obviously began roughly 2 years ago with the zeitgeist that became known as ChatGPT, right? And obviously a lot of the generative AI hype was about individual apps, productivity, these chatbots, that kind of thing. But what we've seen really is an evolution that's kind of come down to the enterprise and to large organizations to adopt AI, whether that's with creatives like Coca-Cola and their entire enterprise, or now with government. But it's different with these large organizations, these large enterprises. They have different needs, right? They can't just start an account. They have privacy concerns. They have security concerns. They have to worry about
terms of service.
Yeah, they have terms of service. They have to worry about their taxpayers and what's this going to do to our mission. Can you talk about some of the complexities that you're dealing with and how you're helping your federal and your state and your local partners get through those?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I was really excited to come onto Adobe, especially with the Adobe public sector. So, Jeffrey, who's, for those of you watching, Jeffrey's my boss. And he recruited me. And one of the things I asked him, I said, look, I need to still help the public sector. Like, I want to come to industry, but I want to be able to come to industry to expand my support to the public sector larger than when I was already doing at the FBI, larger than when I was already doing at the Air Force. And what I mean by that is being on the industry side, I'm able to then bring all the information I'm gathering from there back over to the public sector to help them make informed decisions. So when it comes to, for example, when the Air Force has already started to leverage artificial intelligence with the Nipper GPT, which basically uses ChatGPT inside of the Air Force portal, where you can use that to help formulate your performance evaluation bullets or help formulate documents and things like that within their portal. The Army has something similar, right? So what I'm trying to do from my level is then, as we're looking at bringing on AI capabilities for content creation, I want to go back and educate the Air Force on all of the different things to watch out for when it comes to ethics, right? Like how do we procure an ethical solution to create content? How can we be transparent to the public and let them know we used AI to create this content? This is the technology I'm using. I'm putting this in the caption. I'm putting the label on there. So seeing things like that and educating them more so then they can make informed decisions on what to actually bring in to use. And I think number two, too, is that AI has been around for a long time. It's been around at Adobe for over a decade. We've already had artificial intelligence. We've had machine learning. We've had all these capabilities. It's just, become such a tabletop topic now, but it's been around, right? So, that's where I like Adobe, is because we have sort of these resources from a trusted organization, from a trusted corporation that's already provided AI solutions. Now we're just expanding that out with things like Firefly, with things like the Acrobat AI Assistant, because AI is a part of everything now. It's been a part of Alexa, Siri, it's in your car, like all these things. It's a part of our daily lives. Now, how can we embrace it in a safe and ethical way and use it to our advantage, especially when it comes to informing the public?
And one part that we get as kind of a joy in the solution consultant role and getting folks like Steve to be a part of Adobe is that we operate kind of like an ambassador, that we are fully embedded into what our customers are doing, have a good understanding of their needs, their missions, and what needs to happen. And then we're also able to bring that back to our engineers and our AI folks and say, this is how this use case, this is how this is going to make sense, and this is where you're going to be able to contribute to this great mission. And so that passion kind of goes both ways for us, and it's an honor to be able to carry that hat on both sides.
All right, that's really cool. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a softball just to end. I'm asking everybody this. What is the Adobe app that anybody can use today that's going to really wow them, to surprise them?
So even before coming over to Adobe, when I was at the FBI, one of the things that we had an issue with was like trying to be consistent with our brand, making sure that all of the field offices who manage social media accounts, when they were putting together the graphics and things like that, all had a similar sort of brand, right? So the FBI logo needed to be a certain way or seal, the colors, the fonts. And so, there really wasn't a good solution out there that kept us all consistent, but also just easy to use, because some of the people using this were like public affairs officers who may not have had graphic design experience. So one of the things that I found, and again, this is way before Adobe, I started thinking about coming to work for Adobe, was Adobe Express. Adobe Express is one of those easy drag and drop web-based, so you can access it from your Google Chrome phone. You don't need to install anything. Well, you can if you want the mobile app, but you can access it from a Chrome browser. And at the Bureau, I was starting to use it where I was on the ground responding to a really critical situation, and with my phone, I was able to create a quote graphic from a special agent in charge speaking about a very critical situation, and then giving that to a field office that was then on their X account or Twitter account at the time, and then you'd see it on CNN later that day, or Fox, or whatever news thing, and that was all with Express, all with my phone. I didn't have a computer. So that to me is one of these great tools to have for a wide variety of skill sets to keep consistent, keep on brand, being able to put stuff on the fly, but also now powered by generative AI with Firefly.
I thought the story was you weren't on the ground, that you were actually rock climbing.
Oh, yeah, actually, no, that was,
you were,
yeah,
you
I
were
was
Mission Impossible.
I was rock climbing. Yeah, I didn't want to like totally. Yes,
he wanted to drop that.
Yeah, I was like,
for those folks out there, that's what he was doing.
Yes.
And I'm glad you're actually asking everybody. Is it what Adobe application? Just good. Would be great. On a similar note.
Sorry, I topped you. What are you going to say? You're not going to say Express as I said Express.
I can't say Express, but
Yeah.
I'm going to say, because we are all storytellers. Whether internally we have to tell the story of what this mission values, as well as to the citizens, and as we're engaged. So what I like is where video and Adobe Premiere and what we have coming very soon in terms of storyboarding this information is now you're able to generate what people are desiring, is a video display. Documents and white papers, those are a little bit harder. People are not wanting time. They want to see the full, a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth probably 2 billion words. And being able to create and construct a story with video, and then if you need to go out and capture more to that, you can, but you can construct dialogue, everything can be done within the video. And I think that's really powerful for us to do, to get that information out quicker.
Can I add one quick thing? So, I know we're starting to wrap up here, but if people want to see this in action that are attending today, Jeffrey and I are going to be giving a very lightning round demonstration for like 15 minutes on the demo stage, which at 2 p.m. today, where we're going to showcase using a very federal public sector focused use case, where we're going to run through all of this very quickly so you can see how easy it is to publish and put out content literally in real time.
That's awesome. I'll just say my favorite Adobe app is definitely still Photoshop, but with the generative fill. Yeah. Man, this thing is filthy. It's knocked 15 minutes out of my workflow.
Filthy good.
Filthy good.
Okay.
Filthy, like NBA filthy good. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Very good, gentlemen. Jeffrey, Steve, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. That's pleasure.
Hey, everybody. This is Geoff Livingston with Cognitive Path. I'm here with Nora Connor, the Director of Data Science for Abt Global. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
And you're in Silver Spring, right?
I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, right up the Beltway, off the Beltway.
It's pretty up there, right? I mean,
it is. We've got everything you want, from downtown shops and restaurants to trails along the Anacostia Northwest Branch.
How do you like it right now in peak foliage? Is it amazing?
Oh, it's
right
absolutely gorgeous. Just driving down here for this conference has been fabulous.
Rock Creek, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing is right, yeah. Very cool. So, I mean, obviously, being the director of data science, you're probably directly involved in AI. I don't know what tipped me off to that. But, given that and your experience working with the government, how do you think AI is going to fundamentally transform the way governments serve their citizens, their taxpayers, if you would?
Yeah, so, at Abt, we're a data company through and through. We've been around for 60 years. We started off doing social science research for the government, and we've really put data first. So from our perspective, the most important thing is getting the data right, getting the data ready for AI. I see artificial intelligence as, it's going to transform the way that public citizens interact with their own data. It's going to change the way that government is making decisions and making predictions about beneficiaries. And hopefully it's, going to transform our ability to provide services to the people that need it the most, the vulnerable people that government is really here to serve.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Given that data first approach, I mean, is that really what makes your company's way of working with AI unique and stand out as you're delivering services to government agencies and their citizens?
Yeah, I would say that's something that really distinguishes us is we, we're really familiar with the whole data lifecycle. So we start with collecting the data. We have a data collection practice. So we're doing phone surveys, we're doing mailers, we're doing qualitative interviews, we're collecting that first person on the ground data. We are also then, holding that data and analyzing that data for agencies across the federal government. So whether that's Social Security, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Centers for Disease Control, Housing and Urban Development. Like we've got all these different data that, it's traditionally been really siloed.
Right.
And we're really interested in, figuring out different ways to instead of having the data be sort of organized by federal agency, having the data be organized by the person. So a person has the data. It's not about the agency that collected it. It's about, making sure the data follows the person.
Do you mind if I ask you a small follow-up question on this?
Of course.
So in my work with associations and some government folks and a couple enterprises, usually the data thing is kind of like data shame, right? Like people don't want to talk about the state of their data. Mm-hmm. They really rather ideate and not really focus on that. Mm-hmm. How normal is that? How do you help people work through that so that they can achieve their mission?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think part of that's an excellent point, right? You've got to get the data cleaned. You've got to get the data quality right first. That's sort of the first step. And we're always willing to help with that. We have seen as many Excel sheets as you can possibly imagine.
I know, it's really amazing how many people use Excel for their data.
People love Excel, and there's a reason that people love Excel. It's because it's familiar to people. It's a really intuitive interface. But you know what? We can build other interfaces that are just as intuitive, that are also connected and interoperable across agencies.
Very cool. Obviously, one of the biggest concerns with AI is making sure that people benefit from it, that they're not exploited. Mm-hmm. So equitable and responsible, explainable outcomes are really important in AI. How do you guys approach that to make sure those initiatives are on point?
No, that's a great question. So we have equity as a foundation for everything that we do at Abt. We have a separate equity capability that's involved with our governance process.
That's pretty cool.
It is. We've got some really, really bright thinkers, some really, just groundbreaking folks at our organization who are involved with thinking about equity, thinking about fairness, thinking about transparency. And part of the way that Abt operationalizes that is by incorporating people with lived experience in our projects. So, if you're doing a project for Department of Housing and Urban Development, I want somebody who's been in all the different, that's been engaged with all the different services that are being provided there. I want somebody with lived experience of homelessness, somebody with lived experience of, getting access to that, having to access that data or having to help that person get housing and dealing with sort of the difficulties of that system when we're trying to design the next generation with AI enabling that technology.
Very, very cool. I love that. And really it's nice to see a company at the forefront when it's such an issue, and usually people are just trying to ideate answers. You have answers. It's really nice.
Oh, thank you. We've it's as I said, it's kind of like a foundation of who we are as a company, of really trying to reach people, get social services to the people that need it most, and thinking about like how to sort of center the person rather than sort of centering the solution.
Very cool.
That's been our approach.
That's great. Humans first.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the, I guess, tangents that path takes is bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously,
Yeah.
every data set has some sort of bias in it.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're moving with AI algorithms, there's bias in those because they're created by human beings.
Absolutely.
So how do you address bias while achieving the potential that's available or the flexibility that's available in a development, if you would?
So this is a great question, and I'll say my answer is going to be informed a little bit by one of our partners. So we were on a panel earlier today with Catherine Lang from VaxCare, and the way that she described it is, I think, really insightful, which is you can't just erase the bias from the data, right? If you erase the bias from the data by taking out that, that part of it, it's going to still sneak in somewhere else. So at least if you leave it in your data, you know where it is and you know how to look at it and you know how to see how it's affecting and impacting your models.
Interesting.
So leave the bias in, take note of where it is, and then there's plenty of ways around that too, right? So there's lots of opportunities to work with synthetic data, lots of opportunities to simulate different kinds of outcomes. Abt has really been a leader in sort of the policy simulation space, where we're, basically looking at lots of different outcomes, and that sort of allows us to control the training data and allows us to, control the outcomes a little bit more.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So what pragmatic advice would you offer agency leaders that are implementing AI, about your panel, but just generally about AI altogether and Abt? Like what's the big message?
So I think, I think my big message, and this is from conversations that I've had with, state of California. We were out there a few weeks ago talking to different agencies there in Sacramento about, how they can implement AI. And I think, one of the things that we as industry have maybe not done as good a job of doing is explaining to them that we have the technology now to do AI in a secure and safe way.
Right.
So there's still so much fear about the risks, and there's so much fear about the downsides, but we have the technology.
I would agree with that. I mean, I used to work in the Chief Information Security Office at the United States Postal Service, and I hear fears about AI security. I really think to myself, wow, do you have information security policy set up? I mean, what's your CISO like?
Right. I mean, we all put our, I put my social security information into government websites. I put my password into my banking website every time on my phone, right? And I don't think twice about that. And that's because I've got two-factor set up.
And they have role-based and time-based access too.
Role-based and time-based access. If somebody tries to access my bank account from somebody else's phone, they shut it down because they don't recognize the device, right? So to me, I just see that there's so much fear about what are the negative possibilities. I think it's time to accept that if we're so focused on the downsides, we don't get a chance to think about the possible upsides. And the upsides for AI are so transformative.
Sure.
They have so much opportunity to transform people's lives.
Quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
Just California oriented.
Yeah.
Because it's California and it's Silicon Valley, do you feel like the California state government has an extra sense of urgency to implement?
I do. I think they've done some really innovative stuff. So state of California developed what they've stood up the GovOps department.
Oh, cool.
Which is, really focused on digitization, digital transformation, digital modernization, AI implementation. And they were the ones that were really behind this industry day. I think that's awesome. I would love to see more states do that. I'd love to see federal agencies doing more of that. And I do think as these chief AI officers kind of get stood up, we're going to continue to see more of that. But I am so excited for us just to be able to talk to these agencies, not just about sort of what the tech can do, but talk with them about, what are their problems? What's the quagmire that's holding them back from being able to do the thing that they got their degree in, right? You didn't go work at SAMHSA with your degree in social work to be working on Excel spreadsheets all day, right? How can we free people up to be able to do the high value work that they really went to school to do.
And that they want to do.
And that they want to do,
Right.
that provides more value in other people's lives.
Very cool, Nora. All right, one last question for you. Softball.
Okay.
All right, what's your favorite AI app that everybody should know about?
All right, so my favorite AI app, I have to say, is Claude, which is the generative AI app that's made by Anthropic. We talked about this a little bit beforehand. It's a fabulous large language model that is really built by folks who are really focused on responsible AI, doing AI in a transparent way. We used it with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, where they got 46,000 comments on one of their proposed public rules.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so we wanted to help them sort of sift through these different public comments. And so we used Claude's large language model, which took in this huge volume of text data and gave us summarized points and did a really, really high quality job.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see what you guys do with Abt Global.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
All right, Nora. Hey, everybody. This is Geoff Livingston with Cognitive Path, and I'm here with Josh Stanley, the leader of AI sales strategy for Zoom. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Very good. And welcome to DC. What do you think of being up here during peak foliage?
Oh, it's beautiful. I love flying and landing and seeing all the monuments. It was beautiful. Loved it. Right? Coming from Florida, it's quite a drastic climate change.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Are you northern or southern?
Northern Florida, but we don't get this type of season change.
Very good. Very good. And obviously working at Zoom, Zoom's a storied company of the past decade, obviously instrumental during the pandemic. As we've moved into this AI era, you guys have chosen to offer AI services for free when others have maybe added that little markup or a module. Why have you guys chosen that approach?
We went back and forth on this, quite frankly, and we made the decision that the data is our customers, and we want to just surface that data for them when they want to have access to that information. We believe that it'll create greater value for our product. So there's certainly benefit for us of including it at no additional cost. And we just, we've been very, very pleased to see how customers have responded in terms of being able to adopt and deploy it and use the technology and provide a lot of great feedback. And that's helped us, of course, fine tune and improve on the model as well.
Very cool. And I understand you were just on stage talking about AI Companion.
Yeah.
First of all, what is AI Companion, so folks will know what that specifically means to them?
Sure. So AI Companion is just that. It's a companion that offers AI services for users within the Zoom application. And in our commercial space, that's including in 12 different products. Most people don't know we have even 12 products. In fact, actually, we have over 20 different products, which surprises a lot of people. One great thing is being known for being incredibly fantastic at delivering meetings, but that can be a challenge when you're trying to explain everything else you do.
Sure.
But AI Companion is just that. It is an associate, somebody that's along the ride with you to be able to help improve your efficiency, your effectiveness, make you more productive, extract out the right information at the right time to be able to help people become, again, more productive.
So a bit of an assistant, if you would.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, very cool. And how's the response been to the launch so far?
Amazing. Being the fact that it is included at no additional cost to their existing services makes it a lot easier to turn it on and test it. We have over 4 million accounts that it's turned on for, doing millions of meeting summaries every single month. And as you can imagine, that helps us fine-tune and improve as well, making sure that we optimize the output as well. So it's allowed us to be able to get much more effective in terms of our offering and expand our offering as well. So very, very pleased with the customer response.
So it's funny, I have a friend that works in the federal sector, and they like to call services like yours mission entangling, where it becomes so entrenched and necessary because of things like those additional apps that people can't do without them. So that sounds pretty good.
I'm glad you actually brought that up because I do want to draw a line of demarcation, I guess. So we have a commercial offering that's been around for over a year. That's where most of our customers are. We actually announced in September that AI Companion for meeting summary is now FedRAMP approved, so it's in our Gov offering.
Outstanding.
So that's a little bit newer. We have less customers on that. We have many testing and piloting certain use cases within their environment, and that allows us to be able to, again, fine-tune the way in which the offer works for specifically Gov customers.
Interesting. Let me ask you, while we're on the government side, what are some of the more interesting use cases you're seeing in the gov space?
So we're hearing a lot around just optimizing, right? Things that organizations and departments are doing over and over and over again, trying to find ways to be more efficient, more effective in those. One of the most common I hear over and over is recruiting, right? So we do a lot of interviews.
Sure.
Some of these agencies have large staffs, and they're constantly bringing people in. So the ability to be able to analyze multiple interviews, bring that information together, make a more intelligent hiring decision, and then to use that information in the onboarding process, right? So I can take, because that is captured, summarized, and we can use that information in the onboarding process to make sure those employees are well trained and are productive as fast as possible to shorten that learning curve.
Pretty outstanding. Now, you help folks also customize the way that they deploy AI. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
How does
So
that work?
we have multiple controls in the system that allow you to be able to deploy, across the organization, certain groups, certain employees. You can even customize down the specific feature, the way in which it's available for one employee versus another employee. So we provide and allow you to slice and dice the way in which it's implemented across your organization in the most effective way possible, right? Starting small, providing use cases, seeing value, and then expanding on it from there.
Outstanding. And how do you see Zoom AI Companion evolving both near term and maybe in a few years long term?
I love talking about this because it's much easier in the gov space because the predecessor is our commercial offering. So you can kind of just look what we're doing in the commercial space and determine what do we want to pull in and what's going to provide value for government organizations. So ideally, I see short term our ability to be able to use the transcript in the meeting to be able to ask questions inside that meeting. So you don't have to wait until the summary or the meeting is over to be able to summarize it. So I can pull out, imagine having a project meeting, and at the end of that meeting, ask a question of the transcript. What action items were discussed on this meeting? And then we all review each one of those action items, assign it to an individual. It's going to help us create accountability to it. So we do anticipate rolling that out fairly soon. And then the ability to be able to use recording more intelligently. So to be able to press a button, record that meeting, but more than just get video content and video imagery and audio, but to be able to extract information out, use AI to do highlights, to do topical video playback, to have searchable transcript, to have next steps, to have coaching capabilities. Like I can tell a presenter that they're talking a little too fast, probably like me right now. I can tell them that maybe they went on a long spiel and they should have probably shortened that a little bit. So we can tell them things after that meeting is over in that recording to help them become better presenters, right?
Very cool. I haven't heard the word spiel in quite a while.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. So one last question for you on the federal side. Obviously, there's unique needs. There's unique acquisition requirements.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're seeing on the AI front that you're having to meet as far as policy and requirements?
Yeah. So I would say that obviously first and foremost is we became FedRAMP approved last month. Right, so a lot of that stuff has been worked on over the past year, and we'll kind of continue to expand and grow from there in terms of where our certifications lie and what we're able to focus on and help support. Our involvement with customers right now is really understanding what are those specific and those unique needs around the product. So that we can support. So we're hearing things like around accessibility, right? How can you use tools like this to be able to support the way in which we need to ensure that we are able to deliver on a diverse workforce, right? How do we do that? Things like language translation, things like there's no shortage of list of things that we're working on to be able to improve on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end on a little bit of a softball. What's your favorite AI app that everybody should know about?
Ooh, there's so many. There's some fun ones that are out there that I think.
Let's have a fun one.
Yeah. My first thought went to one of our partners, actually, is Perplexity.ai.
Yeah.
One of my favorite because I am a source nerd. I like to know where data's coming from.
Sure.
So if I ask AI a question and it gives me an answer, I'd like to be able to go sometimes a little deeper. So I love the fact that they provide services around the sources. I also love the fact that you can one-click options to continue the conversation and expand on it. Of course, everybody knows ChatGPT and all the other ones, but Perplexity's been one that has been my go-to for a while. Right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Really appreciate your time today, Josh.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
All right,
it.
brother. Hey everybody, this is Geoff Livingston of Cognitive Path, and I'm speaking today with Jennifer Bond, Vice President of U.S. Federal Avaya, and also U.S. SLED, which is State, Local, and Education.
That's right. That's right.
Boy, that is awesome. I like that SLED acronym.
The SLED, yes.
The SLED. Okay, cool. And you're in from Texas. Which part?
Austin, Texas.
Oh, the cool part of Texas.
The fun part of Texas, yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Very cool. How do you like being in D.C. during peak foliage?
I love it. I got off the plane last night and walked around and was talking to some people saying, I wish I'd brought earmuffs. It was wonderful and fantastic and cold and fallish and amazing.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Really
I've got more pictures to take, too.
It knew you were coming and it timed it for you.
It was exactly timed. Perfect.
That's right. It's pretty cool. So, look, Avaya has a great history, right? You guys have been around a while. Obviously, also in state, local, and education. How does Avaya approach innovation in your markets?
Wow. Well, innovation means so many different things to so many of our different SLED customers, as we've talked. And you really have to boil down to the state, local, and education markets are so different and yet similar. Their challenges vary so greatly. So we've really taken it as a personal approach to each customer's journey and really identifying, going to customer with our story, marketing and working with the specific agencies on specific use cases, and realizing that no agency or customer's journey will ever be the same. They could be similar. Also really listening to the customer and the go-to-customer approach and having use cases and stories that we can share with them so we're consistent, saying something like, hey, in D.C., they're doing this. In the state of Washington, they're doing this. Here was the impact.
Yeah, I used to be a CMO of an ed tech company. It really varies, not even from state to state, but really county to county. It's really quite impressive.
So different.
So you're also helping them work within a modern environment, yet they have their legacy or existing infrastructure. Kind of talk about how you help them innovate within that context.
Right. Well, the first part is there's no shame, right, in having some legacy. The beautiful part about the Avaya story is the innovation without disruption. So we can take that legacy environment and bring them to the future. And a lot of times it's maybe one application at a time,
right.
One use case at a time. So taking a look and saying, again, no shame in keeping on-prem. There's a lot of reasons we have. I think a lot of companies have been maybe, I use the word shame intentionally, forcing customers to feel like they've got to move to the cloud or they're behind.
Got to be in the cloud.
But really, and that's okay to be in the cloud, but really looking at it and saying, if you're not in the cloud, what are you trying to accomplish? How are you serving citizens, faculty, students by what you're doing? And what makes sense to put in the cloud? And also with your budget cycles, you may not be able to, none of the agencies just jump full force, or a school or a university. They're not going to jump full force into the cloud. So again,
sure.
Getting to know them, finding out what their applications are, what they're doing, and some challenges. It goes back to just really the ABCs, right? And saying, okay, this is what you want to do. Let's keep it on-prem. Avaya's got a great story for that, but let's layer on top some applications so you can dip your toe in the cloud and see how it's working for you.
Yeah, right. It's part and parcel of any technological movement. You have to be here, you have to be there, but really, do you?
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific use case you might want to bring up for that SLED market?
Yeah, one of the things we've seen, specifically Leon County down in Florida, when there's emergency situations, really helping them navigate through emergencies, hurricanes and such.
Were they impacted this season?
This was actually last season. We were able to deploy an emergency contact center in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so really looking at standing up in an emergency situation and bringing the government closer to the citizens who need help, which is really what it's all about.
It's really impressive. My better half works at Duke Energy, so I am very familiar with that emergency type of situation.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
And it also comes down to, no matter how prepared you are, you just can't be prepared. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so we see so many agencies and so many of our customers really doing their due diligence, doing the hard work to prepare. But obviously, an emergency is an emergency, and you're not always prepared for every scenario. And so I'm proud that we are partnering with them and able to just put aside process and stand up in emergency situations.
Very interesting. So obviously with state and local government, they have to communicate, they have to collaborate. It kind of helps them improve their stakeholder satisfaction and engagement. Can you dive into a case study for that?
From a citizen satisfaction perspective, or yeah,
Improve public engagement.
Yeah. So one of the things we were just talking about children and getting my 15-year-old just went and got a learner's permit, and and you talk about how as someone who works and consults with agencies and government, but as a parent going in for this scenario, right? And it really, I just shared the story upstairs at a roundtable too. It's really eye-opening. First of all, the tremendous burden the agencies have to keep us safe and all of the documents and all of the things they need to do. But what about just sending a text saying, hey, Jennifer, your appointment is on Monday at 10 a.m. You're driving an hour to go to this appointment. Here are the documents you should bring. Bring your water bill, bring your social security card, bring your mortgage statement. Yes, bring a checkbook. All these things that you may not know. I sat in the office at the DMV, and I'm not picking on my state. It was a wonderful experience, but I saw so many people get turned away.
Wow.
Because they didn't have their documentation, they didn't have the right form filled out, they didn't bring
Very
a checkbook.
human things, right?
And then you think about the government worker who's sitting on the other side of that screen, who probably gets people frustrated with them all day.
Sure.
And they're probably thinking, well, why didn't you read the website? Well, it's not intuitive. So I think really one of the things we're talking about is connecting citizens to their government in a human way, but also looking at both aspects of it, making it easier, because it's a bad look for the DMV. It's a bad look for the person who's not prepared. And it's something that's supposed to be exciting, and it's kind of emotional too. You know, you're taking the day off school to go do this, taking time off work to go do this. Help me be prepared. Help me be a good citizen. I understand that the government has a lot to do to keep all of us safe. They're following their process. And so really Avaya connecting the chat, the AI, taking a mundane task and bringing it and letting the citizen know what's expected of them.
Sure, that makes sense. Now, given your SLED experience, obviously agencies are complex. They're departments and bureaus, and maybe they work together well, maybe they don't. How do you guys help them collaborate and foster decision-making across different departments and bodies within a state and local government?
Yeah, I have the great fortune of having the U.S. team. So as I said earlier on, we share a lot of experiences.
Sure.
Just being with our customers as much as possible, being with the agencies as much as possible, respectfully sharing what they're doing. Conferences like this, where you get to collaborate and share stories amongst each other and learn what others are doing, is another fantastic way. And then you talk about the budget piece. Again, it goes back to what we discussed earlier. Breaking it down into digestible pieces, application-based, because no agency or university or anyone is going to be able to just say, oh, we're going to take out everything legacy and 100% switch. There's so many back-end applications touching everything too that nobody realizes. So breaking it out and really helping them on that journey piece by piece, and understanding. So many times they think, oh, we're just going to switch. And you think, well, there's like 700 dips into different systems there you're going to have to look at. So let's boil this down and let's figure it out and budget appropriately.
Right. And that makes it, chunking it down like that makes it much more manageable, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool. All right. So I'm a little bit of a nerd. All right. Okay. So please forgive me. I'm going to get a little geeky on you here.
Okay.
So within the communication market within SLED, what are some of the key trends and technologies that people should look out for?
Oh, one of the top ones we've seen is translation.
Really?
Translation, so using AI to translate. And you think about, again, serving citizens from all different backgrounds.
Diverse backgrounds, correct.
And that language translation used to be a huge stressor.
Mandarin, Spanish, whatever, right?
And spending millions of dollars on translation, like, oh, let me connect you to language line. Nothing wrong with that. But, just the time it takes, adding to the call, the frustration for the caller, feeling like, well, this is my government, you should understand me.
Sure.
So translation services is one of the top ones. We are also seeing a lot of, like going back to the mundane questions. I want to turn off my water. How many calls does a local your power company, college towns? I think this one always hits home. How many students are moving in and out? The call volume they're taking when school starts in the town, never mind the university, right? So taking some of those very simple AI chat-enabled engines and turning them into freedom for these agents that are supporting these customers.
I imagine that involves a little bit of extra training. Is that right? Training the model, not
training the model, right?
Right.
But again, the mundane. If you look at an agency might be getting 400 or 500, 600 calls for the same thing a day.
Right.
You also think about the satisfaction, the employee satisfaction that's coming from not having to say, yes, send me this. I mean, they're taking that off and freeing up the agent to really support the more complex situations too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Little follow-up question, which is obviously when change comes, it can be hard to navigate. And it sounds like obviously individually with each of these little scenarios, you guys are helping. They're not little, but you know how you're helping them out, right? But is there kind of like an ethos or approach that you take to help folks transition through change or to help navigate transitions?
Yeah, I mean, change is so rapid nowadays with technology. I also find that my customers haven't had rapid change necessarily, right? They've done things the way they've done things. And so it can be a scary endeavor for them. Again, going back to sharing experiences, which is what everything's about, right? Telling them this is how we did it here. Hang on. There's going to be some challenges. It's not always easy. The hardest part about my space is sometimes the change, right? And it's not even that the people supporting us don't want the change. It's also a lot of policy and regulation where they may not be able to change. So it's also having empathy. It's having the empathy around that too.
And their frustration with it, right?
Their frustration. They would like to do things more efficiently, but sometimes we can't. So also understanding that and just being there step by step.
Yeah, I think people forget that all the time, that folks that are working in the government really want to make a difference. Sometimes they're hampered by just legacy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Okay, softball on the way out.
All right.
What's your favorite AI app that everybody should know about?
I'm going to go with an easy one, the ChatGPT.
All right.
My son has been interviewing for tech jobs, and it's funny when you look at, practice interview, right? I'm like, this is my oldest son, and practice interview. I'm like, do you need me to go through and role play? And he's like, Mom, I already have my questions. And I said, how do you have your questions? He goes, Mom, ChatGPT. I think that's a fantastic way to learn and engage, and it's here, right?
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And hard to believe it's only been 2 years.
It's so rapid and so smart, and I'm like, they're questions that I couldn't. I love that he's preparing, so it's not cheating, right? He's preparing with the technology that's available to him.
That's 100% correct. All right. Very good, Jennifer. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.